Hello guys, and welcome back to the last episode of our House on the Floating Island series. Hopefully you're still with me and you haven't been lost along the way. This is really the last video of this series, and this one is going to be a bit shorter. As you can see, I'm just gonna have to render it, and we're gonna assign the materials, add some lighting, and we're gonna keep it real simple for all of you guys that want to use Vray but are scared about the steep learning curve. So I'm gonna keep it real simple, just a couple of settings to set up and to get the best image quality that you can. Anyway, let's get right into it, and here we go. So this is where we left off. Let's just start adding materials. Let's start with the roof. Let's go here, add a material. Let's call it roof. And let's go with the red GB, red on top, this one. Okay, now let's go to HLS and make it more lighter, and let's lower a little bit of saturation. Okay, and then let's select our roof. Here it is. Paint bucket tool. I have my shortcut. Oh, now we're going somewhere. Perfect. Okay, now let's add another material. Let's call it smoke. Okay. Smoke, fine. Now let's add another one. This one we'll call plaster. It's gonna be our house, and I'm probably gonna have to I'm gonna make it a bit yellowish, but very light yellowish. Okay, like this. Okay, plaster. And let's select our house. Our yellowish house. Okay, and then let's add another material. We'll call trees. Okay, this one is gonna be, you've guessed it, green. But I like my greens to be very dark. Okay, this one looks kind of okay. Make it a little bit more dark. Okay, let's go into our components so that you go straight into this one. So we do this with just one click. Perfect. Then let's add another tree trunk. This one is gonna be brownish, like greenish brownish. Very dark. Okay. No, sorry. I've added some opacity. I don't want opacity in my tree trunk. Okay, let's go inside this. Perfecto. Okay. Then let's add a glass material. This is a mistake we've been carrying around all this time. Let's make it right. Okay, so now let's add a glass material. Glass, and we're gonna make it white with the opacity, but we don't need the opacity. Okay, we're just gonna add materials inside our Vray asset editor, but anyway, we'll just add the opacity so that we see that we actually added the material. Okay, so now All the other materials, okay, maybe let's add, let's create a grass material. It's going to be similar to our trees material, but it's not going to be seen because we are going to use our Skatter plugin, but that a little bit later. Anyway, grass, and let's make it even darker. Okay, and the grass is going, turn off. Okay, grass is going here. Perfect, perfect. And now the other materials are going to have a texture. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? First, let's start with the beam. So let's add a beam so we work easier. Far from, oh, this is brick beam. Where is it? Okay, it's here. Okay, and we're going to use our Freedo Tools plugin, and more precisely our, where is it? Freedo Tools, our Through Paint. Perfect. And we're going to select this little, we're going to enable this little icon so that automatically when I press my shortcut for the paint bucket tool, it's going to take me to this dialog box and enabling right away the Through Paint plugin. So let's press this. Okay, so now when I'm out of it and I just press my shortcut for my paint bucket, it already gives me my Through Paint. See? Perfect. Okay. Okay, so now let's add a material with a texture. This one is going to be wood material, and we'll add a texture here. I've had some textures prepared for you guys, and you can I will leave a link in the description from where you can download these textures. So let's choose this rough wood. Open. Okay, and now let's just paint it the normal way. Let's paint it. We'll select this one. Let's see what will happen. Okay, so it mapped it quite good, but we don't like the scale and we want to rotate it. So we'll click on it with the same tool activated, and we will rotate it 90 degrees, and then we'll also scale it. We'll also scale it like this. Ah, this looks much better. Maybe even more so. Perfect. Press enter when you're done. And since we've been using our how do you call it, component everywhere, everything is already mapped. How cool is this? Okay, we just need to add the same thing here. Ah, this one doesn't look good. This one doesn't look good. We're gonna have to do, well, everything is fine, but this face isn't, because why? Because it's not quads. So we're gonna have to go into our, sorry, first let's do this again. Oh, now it looks okay. Let's just scale it a bit. Just scale it just a bit. I think that this is fine for what it was supposed to be. So yeah, this is okay. Great. Okay. Perfect. Of course, the other window, since it's all a component, it's mapped. Everything is fine. And then we need to do the same thing for the door. The door is just a plane, so no problems here. Just place it, and of course scale it. Scale it. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, now we have our brick, even though it's a rock. I've been calling it the brick, but it's actually it's supposed to be a rock. So let's add our brick component that's a rock, and let's go into it, and let's add another material with the rock texture that I prepared for you, and it's this one. Open it. Okay, let's call it rock. Okay, and let's use it. Okay, and let's scale it. Okay, let's see. Okay, we have our rock. Maybe what I want to do is darken our house a bit. So let's go here and let's darken it just a bit. Just a bit, just a bit, just a bit. Maybe reduce the saturation. Or even maybe go more white. Yeah, that's better. And so I'm not quite happy with the color of the brick, of the rock material, so I'm just gonna use the lighter one that I also have prepared. Sorry, not this one. Let's go back. Rock material, edit it, and replace the texture with this one. Oh, much better. Much better. And I also don't like very much this roof. It's too saturated. So let's also make this bit more boring. But since everything is like this, I think it's gonna be okay. Okay. Great. And then for the last part, we can delete this too. Okay, and for the last thing, what we want to do, we want to create another material for the ground below our grass, for our island. And we're gonna add a texture, and this is the texture we're gonna add. Ground. Okay. Okay, first thing we need to do is to select all these edges and make them smooth so that it's easier to add the texture. Okay. Okay, and then we'll add this material. And see what happens. Okay, looks, it mapped it quite right, but we need to scale it enormously. Okay, let's see. We still need to scale it. I think this looks kind of okay. But still, you can see that since it's not quads, you can see that it also replaced our grass color, but we'll get there. I think I want to do, what I want to do is I want to use the projection. I think it's going to look better. So let's try this. Okay, now I think this is best. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Okay. Now let's bring back the grass material. Ah, here it is. This is where it broke. Okay, let's make this like this, and now we can re-add our grass material. Perfect. Okay. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. The only thing left to do now is to render it. And now you can practically, you already have your model. So if you don't want to render it, then that's fine. Another thing I wanted to do, it's kind of a weird trick I like to use, but it's not the best. Probably most of you and most of other professional 3D modelers are gonna use a background in Photoshop, but sometimes if you're not using a renderer, then maybe you would like to use this trick. And the trick is to just add a sky texture like this. Rotate it and use it like this. Okay, well, we need to find ourselves a nice scene from which we want to render the image. Somewhere around, maybe, I don't know, here. Looks quite all right. Okay, and let's add a scene. Let's add a scene. Perfect. And now let's move this sky somewhere around here. Let's scale it a lot. No, 3. Let's place this here. Maybe I've scaled it a bit too much. Yes, I did. Let's go into our scene, back to our scene. Okay, let's just... Okay, let's rotate it this a bit to fit better to our view. Like this. Okay, let's move it back to our scene. Okay, so this looks quite all right. Let's go into our Vray asset editor, and we're gonna have to make some tweaks. Okay, let's open it. So first thing we want to do, we're going to go into settings and we're going to enable interactive rendering, just so that we can start to set things up. Let's expand this and let's go into our render output and let's set something as a test render. This one is fine. And let's render the image. Takes a bit of time. Okay. Okay. Perfect. As you can see, our image is being rendered. If we move inside our viewport, the image is also rendering according to the view. Perfect. Let's go back to our scene view. And maybe what we want to do, we want to change the place of our sun, the direction of our sun. How are we going to do that? We're going to go into our shadow, and here we're going to turn them on so that we can see the shadow that's being cast. Okay, we don't like this shadow, and we can try to move these settings and then we'll get something we want. But the best thing to do, and what I like to do, is to use our Solar North plugin. Solar North lets you choose the direction of the north and therefore the direction of the sun with this tool. Okay, so like here, and I want the sun to come from, so north to be over there, so south is going to be there. Now there's no more shadow on our... Perfect. You see the shadow is back over there, but we're not gonna have a problem with that. And we just maybe want to put the sun a bit higher in the sky. And now everything is good. Perfect. So this is okay. And let's update the scene, because if you the north plugin, the north is gonna stay the same if you move out of your scene, but the shadow setting is gonna reset to whatever scene, to the settings you had when you first created your scene. So when you move these sliders, if you want to keep them, you also have to update the scene. So now when I go back into scene, nothing's changed, and that's what we want. Okay, perfect. So this is fine. The next thing we want to do is to go into our sun settings, and we want to set our size multiplier to somewhere around 80. And what does this give you? It gives you a more softer shadow, and that's what we are going for. And also I can see the scene is quite not so bright, so we're gonna this is practically the intensity multiplier, the same thing. We're gonna set it to 1 point, maybe 4, and see the result. Okay, much better. Perfect. Okay, and now we need to change a bit our materials. And the golden rule, and that's something that, for example, other renderers have by default, but that's the thing that unfortunately Vray for Sketchup doesn't have enabled by default, and that's what most beginners have trouble with, and that is the reflection, and the roughness of the reflection needs to be set maybe at maximum reflection and 50% of roughness, because that's the reality of the world materials. Everything is reflective, it's only rough on the surface, so it doesn't show the reflection, and that's what makes materials more real. For example, this grass material here. Let's see what happens if I add a reflection. This is the maximum reflection. Okay, so now it's not really how do you say, it's not really realistic, but if I lower the glossiness, that's the roughness, if I lower it to maybe 0.3, you can see that now it's looking more natural. Maybe play a bit with these settings, and this is much better than this. I don't know if you can see the difference, but trust me. Anyway, that's something we need to do with all our materials. But let's go set the glass material. Okay, glass is maximum reflection, and refraction also full, but okay, so this is our glass material, looks fine. That's really simple for our glass material. Okay, ground. Okay, now we have our ground material. Here I have, let's go and add the reflection and lower the roughness, the glossiness. Okay, and here I also have a bump map, and I'm going to add it here. Bitmap, and in this case this is actually a normal map, and to input a normal map you just need to, okay, let's select it first. You just need to select this mode to be a normal map. Okay, now this is looking much better, wouldn't you agree? Great, let's go plaster, reflection maximum, glossiness very low, rock Okay, rock reflection maximum, low. And then here I have another bump map. So let's add it. Perfect. And here I will. No, so this is fine. This looks quite all right. Roof, let's just add a reflection and something like this for the roughness. Okay. Smoke, let's add a reflection. Let's add a bit of a refraction so it's see-through like this. And let's reflect glossy like this. Okay, look at how cool is this looking. Great. Perfect. And tree trunk reflection like this. And let's turn off refraction, because when I first created it, I've added some opacity, so that was a mistake, but this looks fine. Trees, green reflection up. Perfect. And the last one, wood. Here I have another bump map. Let's add it. Bump, here it is. This is the bump. Perfect. Okay. Now the last thing I want to do is add some grass. And this is something I will do with the help of another plugin that you need to pay to get. But it's a wonderful plugin. I love it so much. It's definitely one of the best investments I have ever done for SketchUp, especially if you're doing some kind of architectural work and landscaping, something like that. So let's use that. First, let's close this. We don't need it for the time being. And okay, let's call scatter. Here it is. We don't need any more through paint. First thing we need to do before we start, we need to isolate this geometry. That's going to be our grass. So let's duplicate it, maybe, I don't know, 1000 on the z-axis. And then we can also delete this. Perfect. And then we can explode this and create two groups out of it. Make group and make group, and then lower down there another 1000 degrees. Okay, so now scatter. It's real simple. You have your dialog box and your library. And in our case, I just want to add a large, this is like a default settings. It's going to add proxies, render only, load. It's going to ask me to select where I want to put them. I just select this, and this is it. Regenerate. Great. So this is our grass. Okay, but then I want to add another one. And I'm going to add the same thing, but for the border. Because as you can see, here on the border, it's empty. So we need to add another one. Tall grass border, proxies again, render only, load. No, okay, we need to regenerate this. Load. Perfect, now it puts the grass on the border. And that is practically it. Grass border, let's call it. Border, and remember to click regenerate whenever you change some settings around here. You can change a lot of parameters here, but I don't want to go into that. It should be a whole tutorial for Skatter, and there's a lot of them around the internet. But for our purposes, this is all we needed to do. Now let's go back into Vray. Let's choose our scene again. And now let's render the image again. N. What do you think about that? We have our grass. And what I want to do now is replace this grass material with this material, because as you can see, it's looking kind of weird, this green thing behind the grass. So let's just turn everything off. Let's go into here and let's add the ground material. Okay, it's looking fine now. And now let's render everything with the settings and with a bigger resolution. So let's just go back into our settings here. Let's turn off the interactive. Let's up the resolution to 1K, and let's enable the noiser. And this is it, guys. Just press render. And now, while this is rendering, I just wanted to thank you. It's been quite a fun tutorial to make this one, but it took me quite some time. I actually abandoned some other projects I was doing for you to make this the best way I could. And hopefully you did like it. Hopefully you did learn some things. And I want to say this is not probably something I would be too proud of to show around, but it did its purpose. It taught you a lot of things, and hopefully you feel that you've learned something. And if you like this kind of format, if you want to hear me talk again and see more commentary videos and these like step-by-step tutorials, just let me know in the comments. And if you don't, I'll probably notice it by the count, by the view count of the videos. But anyway, I did have a lot of fun. I would definitely tweak something in this image. I would probably add a background in Photoshop. I would probably change some colors to make it more pleasable to the eye, but that's not the subject of this tutorial. You can always tweak them yourselves to your likings, and all these 3D artsy kind of visualization take a lot more time than the time we actually spent on making this. So it's all in the details, you know. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and if you did reach to this very point, you probably want to subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.